Last episode, I discussed why integrity matters. This is the second in a series of 3 episodes about my core tenets of leadership. Today, I will explain why I believe that leadership is about elevating other people, that's your team, and how this develops resilience. Next episode, I will dive into my third tenet, which is seeing leadership as a waypoint rather than a destination. Thank you for joining another episode of Visor Up, the podcast for executives, founders, managers, and aspiring leaders. I'm Stephen Scott-Sopardi, business mentor and author of Your Leadership Ride, a book on building resilient leadership that uses the skills used in riding motorbikes as a metaphor for the workplace. With more than 20 years as a manager and director, I guide leaders who align with my view on putting people first. Why is it called Visor Up? Because on a bike, we use the helmet visor as protection. But to speak to others, we need to lift the shield. This podcast is about removing the barriers and having honest conversations about the real mechanics of leading. Visor up, let's go. Leadership is about elevating others. This is not some fancy line I just thought up, but it has been a core principle in my leadership style for over a decade now. Here's why. As a leader, you want your team to perform, right? And people want a leader they can trust. Sounds simple enough. But how is that trust built? It's built through consistency and through integrity. That means that you show up for the team in a predictable way. The problem is, some leaders forsake being predictable for being a personality. That's this hyped up idea of leading with flash, like some warrior of old dashing into battle, sword in hand, that need to be seen, acknowledged. I have no time for that. I understand that a brand needs a figurehead, so that external part of the image is fine, but internally, to lead others, you need to put aside your ego. Your job is not to be the star. It's to serve the team's ability to perform. If you are a sports team, you are not the athlete on the field. You are the coach, guiding them from the side. You start leading when you start developing people. I remember when I was a younger manager, I thought I was in control. I shoot out instructions, the team followed. Perfect. Not so perfect, because when I went on holiday, every time I would come back to find errors, because I was managing my team, but not developing them. I learned the hard way that a manager who is not developing people is just a single point of failure, and he's heading for burnout. And that brings me back to the environment I mentioned at the start. Your role as a leader is to create that ideal dynamic. You want your team to perform, and they want a safe space with trust. So your role is to build that safe space. One of my best manager mentors taught me the umbrella principle. When it's raining, meaning the team is getting criticized, there's complaints coming in, and so on, as a leader, you open the umbrella and you take the hits for them. Then when the sun comes out, so praise, you win a big client, you close a big project, bonus time, you close the umbrella and let that sun shine straight onto the team. Let me give a couple of examples here. So first you open the umbrella because it's raining. So when something goes wrong on the team, you don't pin it on the individual who caused it. You own the problem yourself as leader. The team is working with processes that you either put in place or you inherited and you've not changed them. So it is your training, your instructions, and the behavior that you model that either leads the team to check twice before they send it, or they cut corners to hurry up. That mistake is on you. So you need to absorb the pressure so that your team can work without worry. Integrity is easy when it's sunny, but your team learns who you really are when the rain starts. And that is when your word is tested. Now, a word of warning here. The umbrella is not bubble wrap. If you protect your team so much that they don't even know there's a storm outside, you're setting them up to fail long term. Your job is to filter the pressure. Take the panic away so that they can focus on the solution, but you don't hide the reality that a solution is needed. So, for example, the filter. Office politics, you can keep to yourself. Your team member will not benefit from knowing that another manager in another team dislikes them. And although you take the heat from above, you still need to pass on the constructive feedback that they need. I'll get to this part a bit later. And then the good times come, so you close the umbrella. If you're praised, credit the team or the team member who did the work. If you need to make a presentation to the board or to a client, include the person who did the heavy lifting. Help them to prepare if they need it, but then let them present their own work. Let the sun shine on them. And letting them shine is not just rewarding them. It's strategic, because you benefit. You're showing the board that you have built a team that functions without your constant input. You're capable of more. That's what you're telling them. And if this is with a client, you're showing the client that you do not always need to be there. Your team now deliver the quality of work that your clients have come to expect from you, which means you don't need to jump in for every client matter, so you save more time. Elevate others. Now, I can hear some of you thinking, Steve, that sounds fantastic, noble even. But if I'm always standing in the rain and giving away the sun, when is it my turn? When do I get to shine? As a leader, your worth, the measure of your performance, is not what you say, but what you deliver. Listen, this is Visor Up, and I only do honest conversations here. This transition bruises your ego. You've spent years being the smart person in the room, but when you stop being the hero with the answers, and you start being the mentor who stands in the background, you might feel redundant. But that is your success. If you are not needed for the basic operations, you're finally free to focus on where do we go next. So don't worry. If your team delivers excellence, okay, if they manage complaints, if your clients love their work, that speaks far more about your leadership than anything you could say. When a board sees a high-performing, autonomous team, they don't wonder who the leader is. Believe me, they know exactly who built that culture. Now, you might be thinking this sounds like a lot of heavy lifting for you as the leader, absorbing the stress, giving away the credit. So, you'll ask the question, what is the actual benefit of elevating others? How does this make the business stronger? So, resilience is often described as the ability to bounce back after a fall. That's certainly part of it, but I prefer to see it as the capacity to absorb stress without breaking. The problem is that capacity does not just appear. You don't wave a magic wand and your team is resilient. You build it by gradually transferring the weight of the mission from your shoulders onto theirs. And this is where many experienced executives stumble. They think that by absorbing all the stress themselves, by being a permanent umbrella, they're being strong. But by doing that, you're creating a fragile team. Because if you're the only one absorbing the stress, the moment you step away, the whole structure collapses. So leaders I work with at this point ask me, but Steve, if I'm always stepping back, am I even doing my job? And I answer that by saying it's how we look at our role. As a leader, we are not the star performer, we're the coach. So we do our job by being in the background, but we do it with intention. Think of a motorbike instructor. The instructor does not sit on the motorbike and ride it for you while you watch from the side. And they certainly do not stay with you forever. Their job is to instruct you, build up your confidence, and then, and here's the hard part, they have to let go. They have to let you feel the weight and the power of the machine. They have to let you make those small mistakes, wobble, even drop the bike while they are watching, so that you don't make catastrophic mistakes when they're not there. As a leader, you are that instructor. And if you are still leaning over their shoulders to steer, you are not leading. You're preventing them from ever learning how to ride. So, getting off the bike for a second and moving back into the workplace. You instruct them and then you let them go. When that instruction phase fails, because it will, they will make mistakes, how you react will make the difference in whether you build resilience or you keep yourself as a breaking point. When your team slip up and you open that umbrella, you show them that you've got their back. And when the team see that you are protecting them when you could have thrown them under the bus, you earn two things: their loyalty and their trust. That means that the next time you ask them to do something new, a higher challenge, something outside their comfort zone, they are less scared of the consequence of a mistake because they know that you protect them. So that protection makes them feel safe. So the umbrella helps with half of the equation. It makes them feel safe. Now let's look at the other half. You need your team to perform. To stop being the person that everyone relies on, you have to take the slow lane in helping your team to develop their capacity, their capabilities. When you correct them after they've made a mistake, you do so in a spirit of learning and in a way that encourages them to think for themselves. Don't just tell them, do it this way. If you do that, they will understand nothing. And the next time around, they will come to ask you how to proceed because they didn't understand what they need to do, so you remain a bottleneck. Now, I have been in your place, and I know why you're holding back from delegating. You are scared that your team will mess up, and then it looks bad on you. And you certainly don't need any extra reasons to open that umbrella. There is enough rain and other things falling. Here's how you get past that fear. The motorbike instructor chooses where he teaches the learner. You start off your new rider on a low-powered machine in a huge parking area with no traffic or people around. You keep it safe, or at least you minimize the danger. In the same way, you don't hand over a multi-million euro project to a junior without a safety net. You let them build up to it. First, you delegate and give them autonomy for the small survivable mistakes, which means those that have a low cost and a low impact if they go wrong and when they go wrong. You let them slip where they have a soft landing, so they feel safe. And then gradually, you develop them from there. So when they finally do reach a major crisis, they can tackle it without panic. What I do is, when people come to me for help, I help them discover the answer. I try to help them understand what they could do differently. Challenge them. Are there any alternatives that they haven't considered? I do this by asking them a question for every problem or question that they ask me. So, for example, if someone tells me, I don't know, Steve, I'm not going to manage to finish the report for the board meeting tomorrow. IT have not sent me the data yet. I will ask, okay, and if IT do not reply on time, if we never get their answer, how else do we get that data? And they might say, I don't know, I can get the raw data myself, but it's going to take 2-3 hours to format that in Excel. And is 2 hours of formatting a better or a worse outcome than walking into a board meeting empty-handed? And that way, they get the point. Of course, this takes much longer, but every time you give them an answer, instead of asking a question, you are stealing your team's growth and you are holding them back from that performance that you want them to achieve. When you can guide them to realize something for themselves rather than handing it to them on a plate, then it becomes a lesson that they remember. So there you have the two sides of the dream team, the safety and the performance. Over time, when you back your people consistently, the team will become more confident in their own ability, they become more comfortable with new challenges, and they will be more willing to take initiative because they know they are protected. They know that you have their back. They admit to mistakes instantly, and they do not allow them to fester and grow. That means that they are solving problems without coming to you. In time, they will take action to preempt the mistakes from even occurring. So now they are doing their work, feeling safe with their leader, and you are doing your work, not theirs. Your team, with the same humans, is now more capable because you have developed them as people. You elevated them. This brings us back to the integrity that we discussed last time. Integrity is not something we pull out in the sunshine. It's a practice for the bad weather. When you stand in the rain for your team, you're proving that your word, your commitment to their safety, is more than something you say in a speech, but you forget it the minute the tide turns. That is how you build up the trust capital that you need for the long haul. And that is resilience. When your team can avoid mistakes, they take initiative, they find solutions, they propose new ideas, then you are a team that can take uncertainty and surprises without crashing. I'm looking forward to the next episode of Visor Up. Today I talked about how you develop others. Next time is about how you develop yourself. We'll look at my third pillar, leadership as a waypoint, not a destination. Closing off, the ultimate test of your leadership is not how the team performs when you are there. Let me ask you, can your team take over and ride without you if you are suddenly out of action?